everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review, and today's review is in association with JediInsider.com, your #1 news source for everything Star Wars. And for today's review, we're going to be taking a look at the upcoming Star Wars The Black Series 6-inch Luke Skywalker and Wampa Deluxe figure set from Hasbro. Now this set comes packaged in the same style Black Series packaging we've seen with the other figures in this line. The all black box, the window box packaging so the figure's clearly displayed so you can see what you're getting. Up in the top corner we have a little medallion image of Luke in his Hoth gear. And then down below we have the Star Wars The Black Series logo and the name of the set. On the back of the packaging we have a little bio and then an image of the Wampa dragging Luke through the snow as seen in Empire Strikes Back. And then down below that we have the Disney and Hasbro logos, and you've got that blue border lighting like you see in the Death Star and everything. Okay, so let's get this open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figures outside of the packaging, and I think this is a pretty nice set overall. Between the two figures, I think I like the Wampa better than the Luke. The Luke's not bad, but I do have a few minor complaints about that one, which we'll go over in a few minutes. But we'll start off looking at the Wampa here in more detail. So I like the paint applications on the Wampa. They've done his fur, and first of all I like how they've sculpted all the fur and everything, which looks pretty good. Now it's very similar in design to the 3 1/4 inch version of the Wampa that we've gotten from Hasbro. So very similar in look to that figure, only bigger. Now I do like the paint applications better on the 6-inch figure. This 3 1/4 inch, I think they overdid it with kind of the brownish yellow color on it. So I like the wash work on this figure. It's much more subtle, but and definitely think it looks much better. So he's got some whiter color fur, like on the upper arms and his chest and his upper head and upper legs and stuff. And then he's got some more kind of a cream or off-white for the rest of the figure. So I think that looks better than the almost brown, like dirt, like he's covered in dirt like we saw in the 3 1/4 inch version that Hasbro's done. So I like the sculpting of all the fur and everything. He's got the blood dripping out of his mouth. He's got the fangs sculpted there, and again it's got some blood on his teeth and everything. So I like that detail. I do think maybe they overdid a little bit with the yellow on his nose. His nose looks just a little bit too yellow to me. But otherwise, I think the paint apps are pretty nice on this. He's got the gray horns that come out the side of his head, and those are just, they're separate from the figure. They're just kind of a rubber, soft rubber type material that they've used for those. And he's got the claws, again, kind of that rubber, rubberized plastic, and they're kind of pointy, so I like that. And then again, he's got the toes, the claws on his toes, so that all looks pretty good. So just overall, and even on the back, nice detailing with the fur sculpting and everything. So just nice detailing overall. So the Wampa doesn't come with any accessories on his own, but he does have an action feature. Again, like we saw with the 3 1/4 inch version of this figure, they've made it so that you can essentially slice off his right arm, like we saw in the movie with Luke's lightsaber. So basically, you can just pull out the arm. It's attached with a peg, and then you've got some red coloring for like blood on the underneath of the arm, on the shoulder, and then on the arm itself. So I like that. I like that little feature. And again, we saw that basically they incorporated that with the 3 1/4 inch version that they've previously released. And you just pop it back on when you want to give him his arm back. The Wampa stands at about 8 inches in height, so he's definitely a good scale, much taller than the Luke Skywalker figure, which stands at about 5 3/4 inches tall. So scale on the figure seems to be pretty decent. So articulation on this figure is pretty nice as well. Now I should note that on the main body, most of the fur is done with in layers. And it's done with, again, that kind of soft rubber plastic, so it gives it some flexibility with movement and everything. And again, you see that on the ends where the fur kind of comes over his wrists and stuff. So it doesn't limit too much of the movement, which I like that, and it covers up some of the joints, which is pretty good. So the head is just on a ball joint, and you can turn the head left and right. Now, I do want to note that it's a kind of a small ball joint, so if you turn the head too much, you'll end up popping the head off. So just be wary of that. It pops right back on, but if you turn the head too much, you do end up popping the head off the ball joint. Now the left arm is on a ball hinge joint, so you can get the arm all the way out. The right arm, because of that, slice off feature, and it's just on a peg, is not on a ball joint, so you can't do that arm straight out. You can rotate, it's got good rotation, but you can't do it out. So the left arm, you do have that ball joint, so you can get it all the way out, and again, has good rotation. Single hinged elbow, so he's got good bending at the elbow, and then he's also got rotation at the elbow. No bicep swivel on this one. And then the wrists he's got hinges on the wrist, so he's got rotation there at the wrist, and he has some up and down movement. Now it's a little bit limited with the fur, how it comes up over the wrists and everything, but he does have the hinges there, so that's pretty nice. Then he's got a midsection joint, so he's got rotation there at the midsection, and you can kind of pivot to the left and right. Not really much in the way of ab crunch because of the fur. And then he's also got a waist swivel as well. The legs are attached with ball joints, but you can't really, he doesn't do the splits a whole lot. That's about as far apart as the legs as you can get. But you can get the leg forward pretty good, and then you can get the legs back about that much. He's got a thigh swivel, and then a single hinged knee, so he can bend his knee about that much. Not a whole lot of bending at the knee. He's also got swivel at the knee, and then he's got hinges, ball hinge joints at the ankles, so he's got ankle pivot, which is nice, and he's got up and down movement with the ankle as well. And then 2 peg holes on the bottom of his feet. Okay, so now we'll take a look at the Luke Skywalker figure, and as I said, out of the 2 figures in the set, this one's my least favorite. It's not horrible or anything, I just have some minor complaints, and it's mostly with the head, and we'll get to that in a minute. But for the most part, the detail on the body of the figure is pretty nice. He's got the brown vest coat, and then the lighter cream color on the arms, and he's got some darker colors up here on the shoulders. So the paint apps on the figure are pretty solid for the most part. The gun belt is not removable on this figure, however it is sculpted to look like pretty much like the same gun belt that we saw on the Bespin Luke, so it's supposed to be essentially the same gun belt, so I do like that they pretty much look the same. Few minor differences, like the buckle here is silver, or is brown, and it's silver. It should be silver, so this one's more accurate. He's got the silver belt buckle and the little tabs on the pouches and stuff, so I like the details on that. The coat that he's wearing is kind of on the bottom underneath the gun belt is not sculpted onto the figure. It's kind of that rubber material, so it gives you some give there. It does limit, because the coat comes down over his legs a little bit, it does limit some of his movement, and we'll look at that in closer detail. He's got the little wrist communicator on his left hand, and that's painted yellow, so nice little detail there. And he's got his rank insignias on his vest. And then off to the side, I guess again this is some kind of rank insignia or something. He's got the scarf, which is a soft goods, which is basically just glued to the side of his head. And it looks okay. Probably a plastic scarf would look a little better, but I do like if you want to hang him upside down, then the scarf will kind of hang down. So I do like that. Or if you want to kind of have him hold the scarf over his face, like you see him try and do in the movie to keep his face warm, you can do that as well. So it's kind of practical. So the soft goods scarf does not bother me. He has the little headgear on the side, which is painted gray. Now I do want to note that, at least on mine, and my guess is probably with most of them, it's going to come out of the package. This little antenna is going to be a little bent coming out of the package, so you may want to heat that up to straighten it out with a hairdryer or something. And again, it's just a soft plastic, so just wanted to notate that. Nice sculpting on the back, the wrinkles on the coat and everything, and the pants are the darker gray, and then the boots are kind of the brown color. So, overall details on the figure are pretty nice. No noticeable paint blemishes or anything like that. Now, my biggest complaint comes with, as I mentioned, the face and head sculpt. So first of all, I don't think it looks terribly like Mark Hamill. But also what I don't like is they basically have done this figure so it's after he's been beat up by the Wampa, which, I mean, I guess makes sense since he comes with the Wampa and everything. So he's got the little cuts on his face, which, don't look bad. They're just kind of painted red scratches on his face. And then they've also given him kind of like a purplish tone to the side of his face for bruises and stuff. So that looks pretty good. But my complaint is I would have liked to have maybe had an alternate head without the scratches, just so you could have a Hoth, Luke Skywalker and Hoth gear pre-Wampa attack. So that's basically my complaint, is I would have liked to have seen an alternate head. He doesn't have the goggles like you see him with most of the time. Now I guess maybe they got knocked off after he got hit by the Wampa. I don't recall exactly, but I'm guessing that's why he doesn't have the goggles. But again, an alternate head or maybe a pair of goggles that are removable or something would have been nice. For accessories, the figure comes with his standard lightsaber, hilt, same basic design as we saw with the previous ones, like with the Bespin Luke, very similar in design. A little darker silver, but for the most part is pretty much the same. Got the little red for the button. And then he's got the blade that's detachable, and it's just that blue translucent plastic, and it's a dark blue for this one, and you just fit it in the lightsaber if you want to basically ignite the lightsaber. And he'll hold the lightsaber in either hand, left or right hand, but I guess it's made more to hold in his left hand than in his right, because his right hand's more for his gun, which he also comes with. And then the lightsaber also has the little hook on the end, and you can hook it onto his belt if you want to. And then he has the gun holster and the gun, and again, same gun like we've seen before, mostly black with the silver tip on the barrel and then the brown handle. Very similar. We've seen this gun with multiple figures, including the Bespin Luke. And it's kind of the soft rubber, so like the barrel is definitely kind of with that soft rubber and will move a little bit. So be careful, and especially when you're putting it in the holster, not to bend it or anything. And then the holster has got a little strap so you can fasten it to secure the gun in there better if you want to, or you can leave it unstrapped if you want. And it's just got a little peg that fits into the hole there on the holster. Now, one thing I do want to note that I kind of don't like is if you want to secure the little strap, if you want to fasten it, you've got to push the gun down enough that the silver tip kind of pushes through the bottom of the holster. So I don't really like that, but it's not a big deal. And as I mentioned, the holster itself is not removable from the figure on this one. It's basically sculpted onto the figure. The holster part, or the belt part, is glued onto the figure, or sculpted onto the figure, and then the holster part is a separate piece and glued to the side of the figure, and kind of is the bottom part of the holster is not attached to the figure. And it would have been nice if maybe they had included the binocular things that we see Luke using at the beginning of the movie of Empire Strikes Back. That would have been a nice accessory to include as well. So as I mentioned before, Luke stands at about 5 3/4 inches tall. He is about the same height as the X-Wing fighter Luke Skywalker figure. And then he's maybe a little bit taller than the Bespin Luke, but I attribute that because he's wearing the hat, so that makes him a little bit taller. So scale-wise seems to be pretty good with this figure. So articulation on the figure is pretty much on par with what we've seen with other figures in the line. The head is on a ball hinge joint, so he can look left and right, and he has some up and down movement. Not a whole lot, even with the hinge, but he does have some up and down movement. Arms are attached with your standard ball hinge joints, so he can get his arm all the way out, and then he's got good rotation. He's got the single hinged elbow, so he can bend his elbow pretty good. And then he's also got the swivel at the elbow, no bicep swivel. Then he's got a swivel at the glove cuff. However, he does not have any kind of wrist articulation on this figure. So no hinges at the wrist like we've seen with previous Luke figures. Just that swivel at the glove cuff. He has a midsection joint, so he's got rotation there. And you can kind of pivot it. Not much in the way of crunch there. And then he's got the ball joints at the leg. He can do the splits about that much. He can get his leg forward about that much. And he can do his leg back about that much. And then he's got the thigh swivel. He's got the double jointed knee, so he's got good bending at the knee. And then no swivel at the boot cuff or anything, but he does have the ankle pivot, so good movement there. And then I don't know why, but he's got basically 2 peg holes on each of his feet. I don't know if this is for the tauntaun or for, you know, if maybe they were going to do something where you could hang him upside down on something. I don't know. I don't have the Deluxe Han Solo and Tauntaun figure, so I don't have a Tauntaun to know if, you know, if this is maybe something that they use for the straps on the saddle of the Tauntaun or what. But again, for some reason, this figure does have essentially 4 peg holes on it. Okay, so that's my review. Overall, as I said, this is a pretty decent set. I definitely like the Wampa better than the Luke figure. And again, not that the Luke figure is bad, but between the two, I think the Wampa is the nicer of the 2 figures. The detail on them are decent. My main complaint with the Luke figure is I just don't like the head sculpt. I don't like the scratches. I would have liked an alternate head without the scratches and with the goggles. But otherwise, you know, it's a good figure. And again, the Wampa I definitely think is a cool figure. So, you know, if you're a fan of, you know, obviously if you've been collecting the Black Series, then you're probably going to want to add these to your collection. But, you know, definitely if you're a fan of like the Wampa or the Hoth scenes in Empire Strikes Back, then I think these are figures that you'll definitely want to add to your collection. Now, this figure is not out yet. It's supposed to be out, I think, sometime next month in June. However, some of these figures seem to be running behind. We haven't yet gotten the Han Solo and Hoth with Tauntaun Deluxe figure yet, and that was supposed to be out first. So, you know, that's supposed to be out this month. Well, it was supposed to be out last month, and then it seemed to get delayed till this month. And so hopefully it will be out soon, and then hopefully this one will soon follow. So I'm going to say tentatively look for this one probably in mid-June. So we'll have a full gallery of images for this figure over at JediInsider.com. If you want to check that out, there's a link in the description below. And as always, we ask, you know, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you're so inclined, please like the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And until next time, I'll catch you later.